Are you ready? Stand by.
Welcome to the 3-Gun Show. I'm your host, Dave Hartman. This is a special Match Recon podcast that we do here on the 3-Gun Show that is designed to give you information on what to expect from a major match so you can be prepared when you go off to shoot it. A couple of years ago, I polled the 3-Gun community on what information they thought was most important to know about a match they were going to. That was the basis for the first Match Recon, and we've tweaked and refined the format over the years to keep it relevant. The list of criteria that we came up with can be found in the show notes, along with answers for this match at 3gunshow.com. Just search for the match that we're discussing. The knowledge you pick up over the next hour or so will help you set up a practice regimen, pack your gear, and get a feel for what the match is like before you get to the range. So grab your notebook and a pen and listen as we take you through the ins and outs of this match. If you enjoy this type of content and want to listen to each new Match Recon as they are published real time, consider supporting the 3-Gun Show on Patreon for as little as $5 per month. You can sign up at patreon.com/3gunshow. That's Patreon. And if you do, thank you. Your support helps to produce content like this. This podcast is brought to you by IWI. The Tavor X95 in 9mm has been one of my favorite guns that I've been shooting lately. 17-inch barrel, which as a bullpup makes it shorter than like a 14.5-inch AR-15. It's a super quiet shooter and so soft recoiling that you hardly even know it's working. I hear a lot of people complain about AR PCCs. Never really been a bother to me, but this one is noticeably softer. Very compact package, takes Colt magazines, 32 rounds. So for most USPSA club matches, their courses of fire are easily handled with one magazine. You don't have to change mags, which makes it super easy. You can also get the big extensions on the Colt mags if you want to do some outlaw PCC, something of that nature. I'm torn on this one, though, because as you'll hear in this podcast coming up with Jake Latola, I need practice on my pistol, and I'm really enjoying the PCC, and that's kind of all I want to do when I go to club matches. So if bullpups are your thing or you're looking for something new, check this out. Mine's flat dark earth, which makes it way cooler. The Tavor X95 in 9mm, IWI.US is where you can check it out. It's a fun gun. This podcast is brought to you by Breda USA, Italian shotguns that are the best in the world. And this is a shotgun tech tip from Team Breda. Hey, this is Dave Hartman from the 3-Gun Show, and I'm with Tina Martin-Nims from Team Breda, and we are going to learn about choke selection.
So before you go out to the match, you want to make sure that you have an understanding of how what your chokes are patterned at. So what I like to do is I have my three main chokes that I usually use, which is a spreader, an IC, an improved cylinder, and a mod. And I set my targets out at 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, and 30. And it's just like a knockover steel and a flipper. And I test to see what how they perform at those distances with the ammo that I typically use. And so when I go out onto a stage, I already know that at, say, 35 yards, I can use my mod choke and knock it out. And I'll be ready to go.
Awesome. All right. Well, that's your tech tip from Tina Martin-Nims of Team Breda. Check out Breda's B12i 3-gun ready inertia-driven shotgun at BredaUSA.com. That's BREDA. Welcome to the 3-Gun Show, brought to you by Armalite. I am your host, Dave Hartman, and this is a special Match Recon podcast with field correspondent Jake Latola. Jake, how are you?
Good, Dave. Guten Abend aus Deutschland.
Are you all right, man? Did you have a conniption there?
Yeah, I did. Sorry, the German just kind of came out of me. I'm in Europe for a work trip here, and glad we were able to touch base, even though we're 8-hour time zone difference right now.
Yeah, this is pretty trippy. I woke up early, and you got out of work late, and here we are at the same time. It's modern technology, pretty amazing.
I'm from the future, Dave. Never forget that.
Is it nice in the future? Is it exciting?
Actually, it's cold and raining, so keep that rain jacket in your car, maybe an umbrella.
Right on. Well, if you like the Match Recon podcast and want to get them as soon as they are available, be sure to sign up as a Patreon supporter. You can find details at patreon.com/3gunshow. That's Patreon. And if not, no problem. 90 days later, they will be available to you. And as always, enjoy this one with Jake Latola. Coming from the future.
Sure am, Dave.
Yeah. So is it smoother in the future?
It will be.
Well, Jake, we've been talking for a little bit here, and I'm excited to chat with you about this match. So we are here to talk about the Fort Benning MultiGun. It's actually held on an Army base, which is kind of cool.
Absolutely, that was a unique experience. It was middle of November. This year it was the 17th, 18th, 19th, and I normally don't shoot much for matches after mid-October. It gets cold in Minnesota. The days start getting shorter. There's not a lot of time to prepare. Early November's deer season, but Benning was a match I always wanted to shoot, and it's put on by the Army Marksmanship Unit, so they're going to put a good challenge out there for you. And I was really excited to go this year. It was a good time, and it was a little tough to train for, because I mentioned the days are a little shorter, but I'm glad I did it, had a good time, and I look forward to sharing that experience with the listeners.
Yeah, I'm interested to hear about it a little bit, but I'm also kind of bummed because I had like a mad case of FOMO, fear of missing out, when I was watching all the stage videos from my friends that were out there shooting, and it was one of those things where it's like just go out back and kick myself for not making the match a priority. So. Sounds like it was a good one, man.
Yeah, it was. There was a total of like over 250 shooters that were signed up for the match, and 237 of them, I think, finished. I don't know if the rest were no-shows or what, but it was definitely well attended, and like you mentioned, it's on an Army base. So how often do you get to do that, as well as a match being hosted by the AMUs?
Yeah, no kidding. Well, I'm sure we'll get into that once we get down into the flavor and everything. I'm sure that has a lot to play into it. So let's start from the top, Jake. Let's go through the Match Recon criteria here.
Yes, sir. So as I mentioned, we're talking about the Fort Benning MultiGun Challenge. And it was held in the middle of November at Fort Benning, Georgia, kind of outside of Columbus, about an hour and a half south of Atlanta. So logistically pretty easy to get to. As far as total time or points, it was a points match. So that's good. That's kind of typical of what I would expect from the AMU. The rule set was their own Fort Benning rules, published beforehand. Pretty straightforward, with a couple of minor exceptions in that coupled mags had to be offset, kind of a la Rocky Mountain 3-gun style, and you had to have traditional double stack rifle mags. No Surefires or D60s or anything like that for the TO divisions, the tactical division.
How do you feel about that?
I didn't see a problem with it. I brought a mag coupler just in case I needed to do a quick reload, but it really didn't come into play. I'm
a fan of that style. Like, I think running a D60 on TAC Ops Gear is kind of dumb, because it's not. I don't know. I don't know if I call myself like a traditionalist or a purist or whatever. I feel like that belongs in open. However, in any match where it's in the rule set, I'll definitely do it, because I think it's an advantage.
Oh, absolutely. I don't own one. I keep kicking myself saying I should buy one, but I don't have a D60 yet. I keep running the Nordic Big Stick, the Gen 2 PMag with the plus 18.
Yeah. So what does that give you? 48 plus 18?
48.
Yeah.
Good math, Dave. Good math.
Well, I was trying to figure if you shut up. So at Hard as Hell last year, they had like a 52 round stage, right? So that just makes it out of reach for that Nordic Big Stick unless you single tap a couple of them, right? And
right.
And I was bummed about that, because I'm like, okay, well, now I have to buy a D60. this stage was obviously designed by someone who owns a D60, and so it's like $150 thing for one stage at one match. But now, and then I actually won one at the Magpul Governors match, and now that I have one, I'm totally okay with that.
Exactly.
All right. Well, sorry, little tangent there, but that I think is an interesting piece of the rules, and one of those things where you always have to look for special little exceptions, right? Because not every match is the same.
That was really what it was. Looking through the rest of the rule set, there was nothing that was kind of outside of the ordinary of what we see at most outlaw matches, and even outside of the irons, TAC irons, factory division stuff with 3-Gun Nation, outside of the 3-Gun Nation capacity limits, everything was pretty straightforward for all the other divisions, with the exception of the coupled mags offset, and you couldn't run triple stacks or D60s in tactical divisions.
Okay. And let's see. It was on practice score, obviously, since we're both looking at the results in practice score right now. And what was what was the schedule?
It was a 3-day match. So we got in, one scout day. Everything was well structured there, and then 3 3-day format, 4 stages per day. I mentioned it's November, so the days are shorter down south too, and so they're a pretty aggressive schedule to try to get 4 stages in per day. I think when we first got there, we were a little worried about it, but things kind of ran without a hitch, and it turned out great. Prize table after on Sunday, with enough time for folks to run back up to ATL and catch their flights out of town if they needed.
Cool. And is that a half day format then?
No, it was full day. So it was basically 1 on, 1 off.
Oh, really?
And
okay.
Yeah, so you were on the base all day, but it was okay because they had 3 separate ranges that the stages were at. So there was some travel time. Like the stages were organized by areas. So if you're at the Krilling range, which is kind of the home of the action shooting team, 4 of the stages you shoot on a particular day are at that range. They had 8 of the stages that were at that range, and the other 4 were split between 2 other ranges. And when you were shooting those other 4 that were split between the other 2 ranges that they had, those were the 4 stages you shot that day. 3 stages at one range, and then 1 more stage at a different range.
Cool. I like when they organize them like that in areas when there's a large facility. Makes it much easier to get to the stages on time and everything. Right,
and I'm a fan of full day format like that. I already mentioned it a couple times. The days are shorter, so the day goes by really fast. There's people everywhere at Krilling. The bays are all kind of close to one another. So, they had some food vendors there, and, some things that were nice to be around that kind of made the day go by, quickly.
Cool. Well, you've got to be the first person I've spoke to under the age of 40 that has said they like the full day format.
I just like the time it gives me to prepare. Like I find when I'm shooting half day and I'm like third on one stage, and then, so I get my stuff ready, I shoot, and then I go back to resetting, and I'm not prepping my gear. And then I've got to go second, and I haven't changed my chokes, and I didn't top off my mags, and I didn't, because I didn't want to Blue Falcon my squad mates by not resetting and doing that stuff, while our squad's still on the stage. So, sometimes I just feel really rushed when I'm shooting half day. Yeah. It's great when it flows well, and, where you are in the order, it turns out you've got time to prepare, or feel prepared at least. And, it's nice to get out of there with an entire afternoon to bum around, but half the time I'm in a place where I'm here to shoot a match and hang out with some of my buddies, and whether we're doing that sitting around in a hotel or, kind of at the range instead, it's good either way.
Yeah. All right. Make a compelling argument. Agree to disagree.
Noted.
All right, and so the match fee on this one, we were trying to scout this one beforehand, so I sent out the bat signal, and Jessica Collier got back to me, and she says 300 something, I believe. So this
was about as good as my guess.
Yeah, exactly. This seems like a theme.
Something.
This is how three gunners do it, right? We book them early in the year, and then we forget what we spend on them because we don't want to have that realization of exactly how much this sport costs.
Exactly. I don't want to add up that total. So the easier that I can just forget what all those match fees were, the better.
Exactly. All right. So we talked about the shooters, 250 some, 230 some finished. How about the division winners, or divisions and winners?
Yeah. So TO was the biggest division. You know, as typical, there was 195 shooters in TO, and it's a well-known gentleman by the name of Todd Jarrett ended up on top. You know, seen the green shirt walking up to the front to collect that huge 105 millimeter artillery round trophy was no surprise there.
Those look like some sweet trophies.
They were. You know, that was really cool. I really wanted one of those. I'm not gonna lie. I saw Nathan Payne. You know, he did well there last year as well. And he was telling me about these big artillery shell trophies, and I'm like, that's all I want. I want to scare the hell out of TSA by putting that in my check bag.
I never thought of that. Like, that's got to be something that's like an interesting conversation on the way home.
Right. So unfortunately, I came up a little short, but that would have been cool. But,
yeah. So where'd you finish?
Second, right behind Todd. Was in striking distance, but I faltered a little bit and kind of dug a hole deep enough I couldn't get out of it.
Yeah. Well, it was definitely close. So Todd's 100%, you're 98.05. And then third place, Jason Tilkey at 97.26. So that was a pretty close race there. And is this the time to talk about penalties, or should we save that for the rest of it?
We can probably save that for the long range discussion.
Okay, cool. All right. What other divisions?
So open was, next highly attended with about 35 shooters. And what's this name? Jerry Mikulake?
I think it's French. Michalek?
Oh, gotcha. Yeah, Jerry was tops in open. No surprise there. I know. Whiteside's distant arms was I believe hot on his heels as well. I know I talked to Mike a couple times throughout the match, and it sounded like he was shooting pretty well, and wasn't quite sure if he was going to catch Jerry. And looks like, much like myself, Chase and Todd, both came up a little short.
Yeah, a little similar there, 98.1%. So yeah, close one there. Third, Gabe Dietrich.
Right. Yeah, Gabe, I've shot with Gabe a couple of times and seen him at matches, and he's normally shooting TO. I didn't get a chance to talk to him. I don't know, maybe preloaded 10 rounds in his shotgun. I'm not really sure if he intentionally shot open, but good for him switching divisions and putting up a good showing.
Yeah, for sure. I was kind of surprised at that as well. Like like you said, I thought of him as a TO guy as well.
Yeah, people like to mix it up sometimes too.
That's right.
There's nothing wrong with that.
That's right. All right. And what other divisions do we have?
Yeah, speaking of mixing up divisions, Nathan Payne coming in tops and TAC irons. Nathan, a year ago at Fort Benning, started shooting TAC irons, limited division, busting out the peepers and shooting the 1X. And he's done really well with it. Traditionally, he's shot a lot of TO and, been a good contender in TO as well. And this year, really kind of focused on shooting irons, and won Rocky Mountain, was able to come in first here at Fort Benning as well, and he had a hell of a year as well as at other matches. I notched quite a few W's in that column for him this year, and Caltech's Joe Easter hot on his heels as well, 98.63 of Nathan's 100%. And I know talking to Nathan off and on throughout the match. He was super worried, and he knew that he and Joe were back and forth, and he was able to sneak it out. So good for him. And Joe shot a hell of a match himself.
Yeah, for sure.
Luke Crawford, chasing a little ways behind there, but it's good to see him out. And I think that's kind of, I don't know Luke real well, but I think that's kind of his turf down in that Atlanta area.
Yeah. So, hey, question here. Rumor has it Nathan Payne jumped out of TAC Ops to run from you. Is that true?
I'll plead the fifth.
All right.
No, I don't know that. I know he's had a lot of success there, and he really enjoys it. He says there's no better feeling than hitting those long range targets, and with 1X, you can't hardly see the thing, and when you hear the RO call hit, it's like, oh, cool. So, and if you look at the overall, we'll talk about penalties later, but it's a couple of limited shooters there. Nathan and Joe were above myself in the overall.
Oh, wow.
So not that overall matters, but the rifle stages really set this match apart. And, open shooters were kind of ruling the day, but down the list in the overall, normally you don't expect to see the second place TO guy at 98% being that far down the list with a couple limited guys ahead of him. So hats off to Nathan and Joe for shooting a hell of a match.
Yeah, no kidding. So when you sort by overall, Nathan goes to 6, Joe to 7, you are at 8, and then Jason Tilkey at 9. That's kind of interesting.
Yeah, Nathan hasn't let me, live that one down yet. Rubbed it in my face constantly. Hey, remember that time I beat you in the overall?
Long flight home.
It was.
All right, and what's our final division here?
Yeah, there was a few heavy shooters there. So they busted out the big bullets, and I think about 7 heavy shooters were there. Ben Powell, that's a name I've heard, but I don't know that I know Ben.
Yeah, I don't either.
Looks like he took tops.
Nice. And James Oliver coming in second at 88%, and my buddy from Texas, Bill Corcoran, coming in at third at 76%. So this is interesting, Jake. I shot the Nordic Vortex Trigun in your neck of the woods this summer, and there was a surprising amount of heavy shooters. And this match has 7. So what do you think it is that draws like a larger heavy crowd to or in Minnesota anyway?
Maybe it's Jomar. I don't know. Jomar Villamore, he's been kind of one of the heavy irons, kind of old school division, so to speak, for quite a while. And I think it's just one of those matches that the people are willing to bust out the heavy guns for. I don't know why. I can't think of anything off the top of my head other than maybe Jomar has some influence and is coercing people to join him.
Yeah, that definitely could be. He's I guess the match director does have a lot of influence over the match, so maybe that's one of those things where they kind of flock to the match since he's there. I don't know. Interesting. Yeah,
could be. And sometimes guys are just looking for an excuse to shoot a different division. Like I'll use Jay Carrillo as an example because Jay is no stranger to shooting in a heavy division. We see him shoot a couple of matches a year in heavy, and it's no surprise when he shows up in TO. It's no surprise when he shows up in limited. Not a surprise when he shows up in heavy. So it just, I guess, whatever flavor you're looking for that particular time, and I guess the Trigun must lend itself to folks wanting to take out the 308.
Sweet. Well, hopefully we'll be seeing more of that with the Pro Series and 3-Gun Nation going away, and like the traditional Pro Series, and so it not necessarily being like a TAC Ops thing now. I think you're going to see that a lot more, people going out into different divisions.
Oh, absolutely. That's one way. We've been trying to diversify the number of shooters in the divisions for years. I mean, there's different things that have been tried for a long time, and we'll see if that one sticks.
Yeah. All right. So any other shooting opportunities while you were there at Benning?
They didn't really have much for other shooting opportunities. There was just cool stuff around.
Yeah.
You're walking around. I mentioned the food vendors were there. So there was some pretty good grub available. But then also, you probably saw some pictures of it online on social media, but they had a couple of, some armor was there. I believe Benning's home to some of the armor for the Army. And they had a Bradley fighting vehicle and a Stryker infantry personnel carrier or something. I don't remember. Forgive me, military folks. I don't know all the M designations and or all the names. All I know is they look like tanks and they're badass. So
yeah,
it was cool to be able to climb around in those and talk to a few of the soldiers that operate those machines on a daily basis.
That's pretty sweet. It's I don't know. I'm sure it becomes like mundane, right? If that's your gig. But for guys like you and me who are non-military, it's kind of a cool thing to be able to see and touch that stuff up close, right?
It really was, and it really gives you an appreciation for everything that our servicemen and women do. You crawl into the back of that thing and you realize that the crew of guys that are sitting in there, they're literally shoulder to shoulder. It's tight. It probably stinks. It's probably really, really loud. And, the things that they endure, for their country and for us, it's really humbling when you get a chance to crawl inside that sardine can.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, we got to play around in an MRAP, at the Magpul Governors match. And I can't even count how many people hit their head getting out of that thing. And I think like how terribly designed that thing was. And, the Cheyenne, I think it was Cheyenne PD. Like those guys, when they need to use that, just banging their heads around, walking around the inside of that thing, it is interesting. Like they design things not necessarily for comfort when there's some sort of military application, right? You get into like a BMW or a Mercedes, since you're in Germany, and it's difficult to be uncomfortable in those things. But for some reason, like they don't have like a lot of I guess what do they call it? Like human design? Come on, you're an engineer.
Yeah, I'll call it creature comforts.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, there's no sort of
the human factors aren't necessarily always considered, but
yeah.
I'm sure that they are, because I actually I do know a gentleman that as an engineer consults with, I believe, the Air Force on some of the human factor elements of maintenance tasks and or design of some of, for example, parts of airplanes and how they access them, and basically the human, how the ultimate human is affected by this design decision. But you look at the cockpit, I guess I would call it, of, for example, the Bradley fighting vehicle that was there, and it is small. I didn't even crawl in there, mostly because I was sore, already, and I didn't want to crawl into that soapbox. And it just, I'm sure guys are going on deployments and driving around in this thing days and weeks on end for months at a time, and that really goes to show the dedication that they have, and that's truly humbling.
Yeah, for sure. All right, Jake. Well, so I think I can kind of guess the answer to this one, but what was the match flavor?
So match flavor was very fast. If you saw some videos, it was a very fast-paced match.
Mm-hmm.
It's mostly bays at Fort Benning. It's so their long range stuff is still on a military range, but there are bays and they're not using all of it. So the bay might still only be 25 yards wide, but then stretch out to 250, 300 yards, and then another where they didn't necessarily use all the sideways area. It was 100, 150 yards wide and 280 yards long, but they only used so much of the width. But so it's really fast, other than the couple of long range rifle stages, and everything was right there in front of you, technical, shoot early, shoot fast, and get out of there to the next targets. And, it kind of felt like a drag race the whole time.
Yeah, I've watched a lot of videos, and that's kind of the sense I get from it as well. Was there a theme to the match?
There was some themes, actually. It was every stage was themed after a movie. I've not really shot a lot of matches that have a kind of a base theme that extends across every stage, but they did that this year at Benning, and I believe they did last year too. They had each stage was named after, I don't recall if it was various battles in history or if it was, I believe that's what it was last year, but this year it was based on movies. So there was, a John Wick stage where everything is fast right in your face and you get to stab a dummy in the head with a pencil and, with an effing pencil, or however. And then, you might have seen some of the videos. There was a Star Wars stage as well where they had the speeder bike constructed, which was an awful shooting position, but it looked cool for pictures.
What did you have to shoot from the speeder?
Go ahead.
What did you have to shoot from the speeder?
Long range rifle.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so they were pretty small, kind of some smaller targets out there from a rather compromised position, but definitely doable. I'm not taking that away from them, but
sure. We're
not to the long range yet, so I'll still bite my tongue. But there was you probably saw some videos where they had the Rambo stage where you shot from a boat. So there was a big trench dug in one of the bays and filled with water with, I don't know if it was a 12 or 14 foot long, 16 foot long John boat that they had a rope strung across, taut, and it had a cable that was holding it kind of in line in different wall sections out there, and you had to pull yourself along and find the shooting positions in there, which was while transitioning back and forth between shotgun and pistol. Something you don't get a chance to practice. That's not, I threw my unicorn floaty in my pool to try to practice, but it wasn't quite the same.
I don't doubt that you have a unicorn floaty.
It was a gift.
Yeah, right. So how deep was the water?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure if Garrison England tested the depths of this one this time, like he did at Gen 3.
Yeah.
But it was deep enough that I didn't want to go in there. Plus, with all the hulls, the shotgun hulls and brass casings floating around in there, I'm sure your lead levels might have gone up had you fallen into that water.
Nice. Yeah.
I was a little disappointed though. I asked when I got there. I think I was talking to Joel Turner, and I asked how long did it take the privates to dig that trench with their e-tools? And he kind of started laughing. And he said, actually, we have some civilian help that used an excavator and dug the hole mechanically. And I was disappointed by that. I was hoping that Nate Staskowitz, since I believe he was at AIT at Benning at the time, I was hoping that was part of what he had to do, is go and dig that trench so everybody else could shoot while he's off doing his training.
That would have been awesome.
Yeah, that would have been good, but to no avail.
So, side note, did you see Staskowitz when you were out there?
No, he's busy being an Army guy.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Yeah, I did ask if there was any chance that he, was going to make a stop by, but they said no.
Nah, won't let him out of the hole.
Right.
Yeah, so I just recently shot the Red October Kalashnikov Festival, and they brought in an excavator and dug some like really deep trenches and really wide trenches. And, it's a ton of work to do that type of thing for a match. And I'm sure this, river simulation was,
right.
was the same way, but man, it really just adds something cool to it. Like it's definitely enjoyed by the shooters for sure.
Absolutely. It provides a dynamic that, you don't normally see. Like I said, that's not something you can practice. You're trying to figure out how to sit in this boat and transition 180-degree target to target without a stable base under you. It's rocking back and forth, and you've got to hit the spots. Otherwise, the target's going to appear and disappear as you're moving down range, and you've got to try to plan that out accordingly.
Yeah, that's so cool. All right, so
one more thing that just on the match thing or on the flavor, one of the stages was an Indiana Jones themed stage where they had a large PVC pipe on the side of the range with a bowling ball that would roll through it.
Oh,
and when
nice.
that bowling ball hit the end, it hit a pressure plate activator that activated a drop turner as well as a swinger that were obscured. So you had to, it was in your best interest, once you threw the sandbag on there, a la Raiders of the Lost Ark, I believe.
Yeah.
Threw the sandbag in there and release the bowling ball. It was in your best interest to go under the door and shoot all the targets as fast as you could, so you could engage those two activating targets before they activated. Basically, you beat the bowling ball down there, you got an open target presentation. If the bowling ball beat you, you're going to have to shoot that swinger while it's swinging around a bunch of barrels and covered by no shoot.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
Man, that's one video I haven't seen yet. I'll have to go creep on people's Facebook videos. Sounds pretty
Maybe
awesome.
I'll put that one up there.
Yeah, I'd like to see that. Well, as far as theme and flavor goes, so it's the RO staff is Army Marksman Unit, right?
Correct. Yeah, the ROs were soldiers from other disciplines of the AMU. Mm-hmm. So, I got a chance to talk to a few of them, but I guess I don't recall exactly who was doing what. But they're certainly professional. Maybe not the most experience with our range commands in action shooting, but that's something you can get around. But sometimes you're just so ingrained in the range commands that we're used to, and just to hear somebody say, "Go ahead, make it hot," and just kind of, okay, are you sure?
Yeah. I've dealt with that at a couple of matches too. When you're done and someone's like, "Ah," you're like, "Does that mean unload, choke, clear?" Or
and it's worse when you're done and they pause.
Yeah,
it's the classic, "If you are finished," unload, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Am I really done? You didn't start saying the range commands right away. Am I done? Did I forget something? What's happened?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and with 3-gun, there's so much going on that it's easy to miss a target or something, and kind of. I always look for that. If finished, unload, choke, clear is like a confirmation. Like, okay, Dave, you're done. Good boy.
Yeah, exactly. Good boy, Dave.
Good boy, Dave.
Yeah, there was like I said, the stages were super fast. So when they're that fast and they're that technical,
yeah,
you've done so much in such a short period of time. Sometimes when you get done and there's a little bit of a pause before they start issuing the range commands at the end of the stage, and you're kind of like, shit, did I forget one? Like you start to second guess yourself, even though you were well prepared, you were focused, you had a good plan. You've still done so much in such a short period of time, you kind of second guess yourself.
Yeah, and you still get that adrenaline cocktail going. So, yeah, good stuff.
Absolutely.
All right, then. So the terrain, base stages, natural terrain, mixture.
Pretty much all base stages. As I mentioned, there was definitely some unique things too that they were able to integrate in. They had a sniper's hide. You were basically within shooting some rifle targets out to mid 100s, upper kind of 150, 175 range, and that included a moving target. There was a simulated vehicle interdiction, I believe I heard people call it. That was a word I was not that familiar with. I was just like, I'm going to shoot that target because I'm supposed to. So,
yeah.
But they had a cardboard car that they had built that was on this traversing mechanism that had a steel plate on it that was, a shoot target on the stage. When they published the stages beforehand, it was at first like an option target, like, oh yeah, cool, try this. And then before the match, I'm sure they heard people talking about, well, I'm just going to take one shot, and if I don't hit it, I'm just going to wait.
Yeah.
I'm just going to move on. There's no penalty. And some speculating here. But then they said, no, that's going to be a required target.
Nice. I like it. So how was it? Did you hit it?
Yeah, I think it took me 2 or 3 shots. But there was Tyler Payne from the AMU actually drew a picture. His art skills are phenomenal, by the way. But he drew a picture with a big aim here crosshair. So you had an idea where the hold was.
Oh, nice. It's good that they helped you out a little bit.
Absolutely. Again, something most people haven't done, right? They could have, as long as it's the same for everybody, it doesn't matter. And if they posted that before the shooting commenced, so everybody was privy to the same information. Mm-hmm. So, it worked out okay.
Yeah. And I've never shot a moving target before. I've shot from moving platforms, like a UTV or something, but in a match environment. So I don't have experience in that area, so I would be grateful for that little drawing. And, when I've shot from the UTV, I always turn to the people from the South, and I'm like, so y'all have shot from vehicles a lot. Where do you hold?
Yeah, but for them, the beer cans are rattling around in the back of the truck.
Yeah, exactly. This is going to be difficult sober, but... Yeah, so we kind of got into skills utilized there. So what other skills were utilized in this match, Jake?
So we're talking about a little bit of kind of mid-range precision, I'll call it, with the rifle, including a rifle Texas Star. Texas Star is something we don't get to shoot very often with a rifle, at least matches that I've been to. Maybe some others have more experience with that, but typically it's a target that you need to shoot from greater than 100 yards, and a lot of venues aren't willing to risk that very expensive prop.
Yeah.
But the AMU was willing to put that out there, and they covered, they had a barrel covering the 5 o'clock position on the Star. So you kind of had to shoot it so it spun clockwise. And, that's always fun. I've only done that a couple of times. So kind of matching, rifle shooting on another moving target, this time swinging in an arc, it definitely kind of called on some of your fundamentals.
Yeah, we had one of those at Colorado 3-Gun Championship. It was like 45 yards or something like that from a what do they call it, suspension bridge. And that was interesting. It was only 45 yards, but it was easier than I thought it would be. But I had like a lot of trepidation going up to it. Like I was like, okay, well, I've never seen or done this before, so I don't know what to expect.
Right.
Yeah. So,
in typical AMU fashion, they're really just testing fundamentals and testing your fundamentals quickly. And it's about doing fundamentals faster than everybody else. So if we're talking about skills, there were some stages, stage 1, for example, there was like 60 pieces of steel out there, and it was shotgun or pistol option, as well as a flying clay, an aerial clay that you had to shoot. So it was, do you load the shotgun or do you shoot the shotgun right away? Where do you integrate the shotgun to, do you want to take the risk to try to shoot that clay with your pistol?
Mm-hmm.
It probably launched 12, 15 feet in the air too. It wasn't a shorty. It was up there. So there was you had some time to screw that one up if you decided to take it with the pistol.
Well, and that's unique too, right? We don't often shoot flying clays with pistols. So that I'm assuming that this was out of like a toaster or a kicker kind of thing.
Right. The MGM pigeon toaster or the black sheep thrower or whatever it was.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, same thing. That's they had 2 of those at the match. So one was on that all steel stage, which, so we're talking about fundamentals right here, and they're testing fundamentals. Well, you've got this sea of steel in front of you, and a lot of people shot it with mostly pistol. And very rarely do you approach a stage with that many pieces of steel on it. You know, it almost felt like a Pro-Am style thing where you're just ding, 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 and all of a sudden your mag goes empty and you're like, oh, what do I do now? You know, as you're drawing your fourth mag out of a spot on your belt that you're not used to reaching to and trying to finish out the stage. And then they say your time and you're like, is that good? I feel like I shot a lot.
Yeah. So that's an interesting thing. It's something that Adam Maxwell and I have discussed quite a bit is is how 3-gun is regional, right? And so like down south, Florida, Georgia, places like that, you get a lot of really competent pistol shooters, and you dudes up in Minnesota are super competent shotgun shooters, right? So how did you decide what to shoot on that particular stage, and then did you notice that type of regional difference in the competitors?
No, you know, the fastest guys in a given match are typically not varying too far from one another. One, you could say maybe they've chatted with each other, but they usually reach one of maybe two conclusions on how to run a stage. Mm-hmm. And on that particular stage, you know, like the one we're talking about with the big sea of steel and pistol shotgun option, I actually was doing the math.
No way.
So, yeah, weird, right? But I mean, this is actually a discussion I kind of wanted to figure out a way to present the information, because, you know, there are certain things that people don't understand how they add up over the course of a stage. Like, for example, every time you establish a shooting position, it's 3 seconds minimum. It takes 3 seconds to get in and out of that position. So when people are trying to minimize the shooting positions is, if I do it this way, I have 6 shooting positions. If I do it this way, I only have 4. You just saved yourself 6 seconds right there.
Right.
And then I got down to, if I shoot the shotgun, I can get doubles here, maybe a triple here. And, you know, how much is that going to save me if I get 8 doubles across here with the shotgun? That's 8 targets I don't have to engage. But then, so that, you know, if it's 50 splits, for example, that's 4 seconds that I could maybe save. But then I've got to load the shotgun, and I've got to put 8 or 12 rounds or something in the shotgun to shoot it a little bit more. And I just gave up all that time that I got back by getting doubles. Mm-hmm. So there was an opportunity to kind of approach that one simply mathematically. And I nerded out over it a little bit. We were driving back from the range one night, and I'm just kind of talking out loud, and I've got Gunner On from JP and Chris Sazin, a good buddy of mine, and Dustin Felix from Hyperfire, and we're all riding together, and they're just kind of like, yep, okay, until I reached my conclusion that it was probably faster to do it this one way. And they're like, okay, that's how we'll do it.
Dude,
so shot the shotgun first, shot it empty, and then shot the rest with the pistol.
No, I gotcha. Well, so by the way, that is exactly what I would do too, because I'm not a very good mather. I'm bad at math. So I would encourage you to talk that out on the drive, and then only listen to the last part.
Say what? Huh?
Exactly. Like I would encourage you to talk out your deal, and then just let me know your conclusion there.
Yeah, right. Just do it this way.
Yeah. When stages come down to things like that is when I'm grateful for friends like you who can do all that stuff and just, you know, point me in the right direction.
You got it.
So it's
back to skills real quick. I mean, it was
Sure.
a lot of pistol targets across the whole match. It was a real pistol heavy match. A lot of between that one stage that had some option and then the all pistol stage. You know, between those stages alone, there was 120 pistol rounds a person probably shot. 100 rounds at least, probably.
That is a lot.
It was, just on 2 stages. I mean, then the rest of it was intermixed. You know, it seems more balanced, but there was a lot of pistol in this match, and pistol is the platform that is the most difficult to master, as well as the one that I think translates the most into, you know, the shoulder-fired guns as well.
Yeah. You know, that's very true, and I hear that from a lot of people. And in fact, when when I discuss like round counts and general practice with people on the podcast and off, you find that most people, and we just had this discussion before we went hot here, most people spend the balance of their time shooting pistol in practice.
Right. And, in Minnesota, we used to have a lot more crossover 3-gunner USPSA guys, and we still have a lot of them. But a lot of the newer shooters that have gotten into 3-gun, at least in Minnesota, are not shooting USPSA, mostly because there's more 3-gun opportunities now with Hawkeye Ignite weeknight matches and, enough matches from Minnesota 3-gun group that there's enough opportunities to just shoot 3-gun. But they're really leaving technical know-how and technical experience in terms of, not necessarily shooting faster, but shooting sooner, getting into a solid, stable base and good shooting position with the pistol. They're leaving a lot of skills and a lot of time that translate across bigger areas of 3-gun by not shooting USPSA. So it's something I've kind of told a few people when they're like, how do I get better? I'm like, well, you probably need to shoot your pistol more.
Yeah.
And you need to not shoot it like a 3-gunner. You need to go and shoot limited minor and suck it up and get your A hits. And then, it'll make you a better 3-gunner to be technical in what you're doing. And USPSA is just a discipline that forces you to do that.
Yeah, I totally agree. When I first started shooting 3-gun, my first match, like in general, was a 3-gun match. And then I think the people that I was shooting with, I identified that I was like really excited about it, but I also sucked really bad. So I took some advice from an early mentor and shot USPSA production as well as 3-gun for a couple of years, and it slowed me down a ton, but also made me like a way more proficient pistol shooter. And since I've been only shooting 3-gun in the last 3 years here, I can definitely see that the skill level with the pistol has been waning for sure. It's easy to lose.
Oh, absolutely. And it's funny because you'll see, it's the debate. It's everybody makes fun of IDPA, but we're not talking about that. But even between USPSA and 3-gun, they tease each other back and forth.
Oh yeah.
And, they always say, well, you 3-gunners aren't accurate pistol shooters. And it's like, dude, we shoot targets that aren't even legal in your game.
Yeah.
When was the last time you shot a 10-inch plate at 80 yards?
Yeah, that's a very good point. When, I don't know. And then, the arrays have to be like single stack friendly and stuff where we, like you said, you go to 2 stages, there's 120 rounds between the two. So a pistol, like you would never find that in a USPSA match.
No, that would be the whole match.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and they would complain about a sniper's hide or a speeder bike.
Yeah.
So
moving on, I guess, as we're talking about farther shot, you brought up the speeder bike.
Yeah.
Now it's probably a good segue into the long range. So there wasn't a ton of long range at this match. Fort Benning, they have the ability to maybe stretch it out to 450 yards, they said, was their longest possible shot. But that would involve basically having just one stage on one of their ranges. And it would have been the range where they had 3 stages held. So it would have,
okay.
They would have had to work it out different logistically. But so comparatively speaking, the long range wasn't that long. The longest targets were maybe 260 yards. But it was an 8-inch plate. Joel Turner told me it was very similar to the plate you might see on a plate rack.
Nice.
So I'm guessing they had a stack of plate rack plates sitting there, and they're like, hey, we need some rifle targets. So they put those up.
Nice. Well,
and, it's funny, even, you asked me about penalties. This is probably where this needs to come up. But that long range, the long range targets at this match, for some reason, ate everybody's lunch. It was widespread across the field. If you ran the 2 long range stages clean, you made up a ton of points on somebody who didn't.
Yeah.
And, long range is critical to any match, but I was shocked at how penal they were at this particular match. They weren't hard shots. It just, I think as 3-gunners, we tend to, a lot of times, you think an 8-inch plate, you can ring that all day at 260 yards, right?
Yep.
Like I've got a JP rifle that shoots a half minute, and I've got my Razor 1-6 on it, a good hyperfire trigger. I've got the top of the line gear. I should be able to drill a 1-inch hole on that 260-yard target if I want.
Right.
But at a lot of matches, other than maybe Andy Horner matches like Blue Ridge, but a lot of times the long range targets are 4-minute, 5-minute targets where, that might be a 14-inch plate out there at 350 yards or something.
Yeah. And
you have a larger margin of error with that large of a target. Now, sure, an 8-inch plate at 200 yards is a 4-minute target, but for whatever reason, it seems a lot smaller than that. There might have been something kind of goofy going on with the wind. It might have been something funny. I'm not sure, but the shooting positions were prone. For example, on one stage, there was 3 different shooting positions where you were re-engaging, I believe it was 4 targets from 3 different spots, 3 different shooting positions, and 2 of them were prone. And the third was kind of in this goofy tire position, but it was super solid if you could get into the right position. And a lot of people, myself included, left targets and missed targets and or timed out. Dave, I timed out for the first time in 5 years. I've never timed out on a stage.
Wow.
And I timed out on that stage, and I did not hit 4 long-range targets.
So that explains the 105 seconds of penalties. So 105 seconds of penalties and still came in second place. Like that just doesn't happen, right? Like even the winner, Todd Jarrett, and we're looking at TAC Ops here, 60 seconds of penalties. I was scoping down to see who had the most penalties in TAC Ops, and there's some in the 300s. Like our buddy Joe Farewell, I think he had like a bad day with his rifle, but 330 seconds of penalties and still in 17th place. It's crazy.
It was a battle of attrition, I swear. It was. You talk to some people, and I remember watching the squad in front of us, and one of the squads in front of us, Joe Easter was shooting. So he's shooting limited. He's shooting a 1X. He gets all his hits, and I was licking my chops going into that stage that I mentioned with the 3 positions and the 4 targets. I was like, I am going to burn this thing down. I'm shooting my rifle great. I just confirmed my loads. I checked my 0 when I got there, and just, dug myself a huge hole. And I think, one of the things I was trying to get to earlier, and Nathan Payne and I were talking about this just recently the other day, kind of recapping the match and just chatting a little bit. And as 3-gunners, a lot of times when we get into the long range shooting, we still shoot too fast. You need to kind of get in there and turn yourself into PRS mode and really try to focus on getting really good solid holds and breaking the shot when it counts. Cause if you're just expecting to get away with a sloppy sight picture on an 8-inch target at what seems like it should be easy distances, tell you what, you're going to end up with 105 seconds in penalties.
Yeah. I struggle
or
with
more.
Yeah. There's I scrolled all the way down. There's an 11:55. Woo. So I struggle with that myself, Jake, and it's something that I've been trying to balance this year of, calming down, being patient and getting into position and getting those good holds versus taking that target and getting the hell out of there. How do you balance that when there's that clock running in your head?
It turns into a complete pucker factor. I had no idea where I was on the time. All I know is I shot a lot from the first position. And I'm like, I got to get out of here. I'm going to take 8 FTEs if I sit here and go to war with these things all day.
Yeah, yeah.
And you get into the second position. I think I left 1 or 2 targets in the second position. And I'm like, you got to suck it up and move on. And one of the things that Brian Payne always said that I've had a tough time living by this is when you get into a long range stage, you take 3 well-aimed shots. And that's a rule of thumb that maybe some people could benefit from. I have a tendency, if I'm shooting too fast and I'm like, no, I can get it on this one. I can get it on this one. I can get it on this one. And all of a sudden you've taken 6-8 shots at a long range target. And at 3 seconds of pull, that's a ton of time.
Yeah.
And it really adds up. So Brian had a rule of thumb that, take 3 well-aimed shots. If you don't get it, move on. And then if you say there's 5 targets and you struggled on one of them and you got all the other ones in one shot, maybe go back and try and take 1 or 2 more at it, but try to make it up. But you've got to figure out for you when it makes sense to draw the line. And I think that's a good place to start for a lot of people is I'm going to get good holds, good sight pictures. And if you know that you threw a bad shot on one, maybe for you it makes sense to, hey, that doesn't count towards my 3 because I know it hit the dirt, 8 feet left. It was a really bad call. And but take 3 well-aimed shots and then move on. And that clock's ticking in the back of your head, and you're just at some point you reach your time limit, and you're like, boy, I hope I just engage them all.
Yeah. The 3 well-aimed shots, that's a great rule of thumb. Like I hear people all the time saying, if you're not hitting it, move on, know your limits or shoot to your ability, blah, 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 all that stuff. But when you actually put like a number on it, that becomes tangible.
Oh, exactly. And it's stuff like that a lot of people don't realize. Like even we mentioned shooting positions. It takes 3 seconds to get in and out of a shooting position. Every time we stop, it's 3 seconds, right? Well, long range has its own nuances there, where 3 well-aimed shots is a good starting point. And sometimes, you hear people dialing the clock, they say, where, hey, I couldn't figure out my hold. I held for wind a little bit. I didn't hold for wind. I held high. I held low. I held minute of wobble because I couldn't hold it any steadier than that. And, I didn't get my hits.
Yeah, man, there's those freaking long range targets love to suck you in, just taunt you.
Right. And, you mentioned the 3-gun is regional, and, the folks out west that shoot a lot more rifle, or even the guys in Texas too, they get opportunities to shoot a lot of long range rifle. And for me in my area, that's a limitation. And I know I have opportunities to go shoot it. It's just, I haven't had the bandwidth or the time to make it out there and really put in the work. And it definitely came up to bite me at this year's Benning match.
Mm-hmm. That's one thing that I really enjoyed about living in Texas last year is, here in Colorado, our club matches go out to 200 yards at max, right? And generally you don't get to shoot the 200-yard range every month, right? In Texas, I went to my first club match was a Dissident Arms match at Cawthorn Cartridge Club, which is a ton of fun, great matches. And they're like, yeah, we're not shooting very far today, so 430 will be our longest shot.
Right.
Okay.
And by the way, it's a 15-mile-an-hour full value wind, and good luck.
Yeah, right. Yeah, in the Vortex Shooter Source 3-gun match, we shot out to like 605 yards, and granted that was like a full-size Zipsic, and I had a really good spotter, so I got lucky on that one. But
you walked in.
Yeah, Hunter Sykes, by the way, little shout out. Thanks, Hunter. So yeah, it's man, 3-gun is so regional. It's amazing, but it's pretty cool when you get to to flex those muscles on things that you're stronger at. When you get to a stage and you're like, yeah, this is my jam.
Right, and then to take the things. I mean, even more important than that, you feel that sense of confidence when you know that it fits your skill set, and a lot of the stages at Benning fit my skill set, and including the long range ones, and I did not perform. And but then to eat crow and be willing to take your lumps and be like, hey, this did not go well for me. I need to improve here. You know, like, and I'll use Josh Fralick as an example here in Minnesota, I guess overseas in Minnesota from where I'm currently located. But, you know, Josh knew that he wanted to get better at his long range rifle, and he put in a ton of work. And as far as I know, it's going better for him. And I was able to win the 3-Gun Nation Nationals in open division, or unlimited division, I guess I would say. Mm-hmm. And I have no doubts that that's going to carry over for him into next year. You know, he put in a ton of work and identified a weakness and was willing to work on it. And, you know, if everybody's willing to do that as well, they're going to see their performance improve.
Yeah, for sure. And, you know, there's a lot of people out there that'll just say, oh, I'm not good at X, long range, pistol, loading the shotgun, whatever. But that's one thing I really enjoyed about Josh. When I had him on the podcast at the Nordic Vortex Tri-Gun, that was one of his weaknesses that he identified, right? Just recently, we did a match recon of the 3-Gun Nation Nationals, and obviously he, you know, won that match in Unlimited. And so I asked him about, like, you know, how was long range? And, you know, he discussed the practice that he put in and, you know, the things that he learned in his practice and everything. So it's cool to, you know, I mean, guys like Josh, like, should be inspirational to everyone, right? So in August, we're talking about a weakness. And in November, we're talking about a match win because he knocked that weakness out, right? I mean, it's cool.
Exactly.
Yeah. So we talked about a couple 260-yard shots that were eating your lunch. What other long distances, or how many other long distance targets were there, and what was like the farthest distance?
260. 260 was the longest. Yeah, there was 250, 260-yard targets on both of the stages that had long-range rifle. You know, I mentioned the one you had to re-engage from 3 different positions, and then in the other you had to re-engage, I believe it was 5 targets from 2 different positions. One being an X-Wing fighter, and the other being a speeder bike both from Star Wars.
Nice.
You know, we were, you know, a Wookiee short of a party.
Story of my life.
And you know, you heard me tease earlier that speeder bike was a terrible shooting position.
Yeah.
And the only reason I say that was at one point in time we're sitting there and Joel Turner was driving around and he had to repair a target, and he comes back and he goes and he kind of sits on that speeder bike and assumes some semblance of a shooting position, and he just turns to somebody, I don't remember who it was, and says, "This position sucks." So when you hear it from an AMU action shooting team guy who also happens to be a sniper, you know it's no good. But
yeah, everybody
had to shoot it. Everybody had to put up or shut up. And, you know, a lot of us left some time out there and left battered and bruised, whether it be in ego or in actuality from some of those stages. And, you know, it shows when you look down the score sheet that a lot of people struggled there with things that, you know, maybe you wouldn't have thought would have been as challenging as they were.
Yeah, no kidding. Man, so while you were talking there and you were, I was just kind of curious, like, did anyone shoot this penalty free? And I just scrolled through Open and TAC Ops, and no one shot it penalty free, including the aforementioned Jerry Michalek. No one in TAC Irons, and no one in Heavy. No one shot this match penalty free. You don't see that a lot, right?
No, very seldom. I mean, some of the big natural terrain matches, Blue Ridge, you know, maybe Hard as Hell, and like things like that, where really big, really long stages and long range, you know, real long range, you know, 300, 400, 500, 600 yards. You know, a lot of times somebody's got to eat a target or two and you know, move on. So you'll see penalties there, and even there, you don't see penalties as high as what we're seeing from this year's Benning match. It was really shocking. I don't think anybody was expecting that. An 8-inch target is a fair target. The target presentation was completely fair, but it just ate everybody up.
Yeah. So were the penalty values higher than usual?
No, it was still 15 seconds for an FTE and 10 seconds, I believe, for an unhit long-range target.
Dang.
No. It was. I think it was 15 seconds for an unhit long-range target because I can't remember.
All right. Well, we'll look at the rules later.
Yeah.
Okay. So
They were. Go ahead.
I was gonna move us on to logistics.
Yes. To no surprise, one logistically, I believe it's Fort Benning MWR. I don't recall exactly what that acronym stands for, but my understanding is it's a civilian organization that helps with kind of some of the morale building and or kind of activities for Army personnel. And that group of civilians was part of the, in my understanding, the logistical driving force to putting together the prize table, putting together some of the communications that went out to the shooters, getting the tent set up for the awards ceremony, and they put in a ton of work in addition to all the AMU guys putting together all the stages. The AMU built the stages and conducted the match, and to my understanding, the MWR did a lot of the behind the scenes stuff that often goes underappreciated.
Yeah.
And I think they definitely deserve a shout out for that.
Very cool. It's, there's so much to do in a match that I would imagine that having an organization like that to assist you would be like a godsend,
Oh, absolutely. And you even see it in the list of sponsors that there was even some from outside of our typical shooting community sponsors. For example, Dell, the computer company, had a demo station of some of their gaming PCs there, and they had a gaming laptop on the prize table, and I just thought that was really cool. I'm sure it was somebody who knew somebody who was high up enough in Dell's marketing program to say, hey, let's send a couple people out there and spread the word.
Yeah, I think that's cool. There's like a ton of higher income consumers at at major matches, right? So why not send Dell out there?
Right. And they were walking around handing out swag items. Basically, they had some sunglasses that they handed out with Dell on the side, and which the thing that I liked the most was they had chapstick. It was Dell branded chapstick tubes, but I didn't have any, and it was kind of windy, and it was amazing.
Nice.
But anyway, logistics for the shooters, it was seamless. As you would expect from the Army. The only little hang up we had was where we shipped our ammunition to. When we went to register or check in for the match, we registered, crossed your name off the list. Here's your swag bag and your cool ammo can with a Fort Benning sticker on the side and a really cool challenge coin. You can call it a challenge coin, but a coin that has the Fort Benning MultiGun Challenge logo on it.
Nice.
And the year. So that's a cool keepsake that I put on my bench, and it's something really neat to look at. And so you get all that stuff, and at that time it would have been wise to have asked, hey, for those of us that shipped ammo, where do we find that? And we just wanted to get out, look at the stages, didn't really think twice about it. So then we went to the location where we had shipped our ammo, and they're like, oh, we brought it over to the registration place at the Krilling range where we had just registered. And so it was
Whoops.
We didn't know about it ahead of time, but we should have known better at the same time to inquire about that upon arrival.
Yeah, it's funny, one of those things where someone's trying to be helpful and and you don't know they're trying to be helpful, so it kind of screws you in the end.
Right. And I'm going to lump in the pre-communication for this as well, since that's really part of the logistics. But
sure.
Pre-communication, as I mentioned earlier, they did release all the stage designs beforehand. They even sent
Jake, we had a international incident where our Skype call dropped. So let's bring it back from pre-communication here.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry about that, Dave.
No worries.
But as far as pre-communication goes, as I mentioned, they had the stages out early, so everybody kind of got to take a look at maybe what to expect from this year's vending match, as well as early draft versions of the match book with all the sponsor information and stage designs, the rule set, the details of how to enter the base. Because you're entering a military base, and they really spelled it out for you. What forms of ID to enter the base are valid, and go to this gate at the base and go here and get checked in. And I thought they put all the information out there. If you didn't choose to read it, sure, maybe it would be confusing, but it was all there that described to you how to properly enter the base and not to speed. If you can ask Dave Horn, if anybody saw his comments on Facebook, that he got pulled over and got away with it. But they run a pretty tight ship, I believe, especially in the mornings when everybody's doing PT, that you don't want to push the speed limits too high.
Yeah, and Dave Horn likes to speed a little bit.
And that big truck sticks out like a sore thumb, too.
Yeah, no kidding. He's an easy target.
Right. But it was very well communicated, I thought. And we're not talking weeks in advance. I bet we saw the first revision of the match book a month beforehand.
Yeah.
Maybe more. I was 100% confident in, what we were getting ourselves into based on, the quality communication that we did receive as shooters.
I tell you what I liked. They put the stage diagrams on Instagram, and that started my FOMO off early. Like a week in advance. Like, oh crap, I should have gone to this match, because you get to see the stage designs, and they put the descriptions down in the comments and stuff, and you don't see that a lot from matches, and I think that adds like a little bit of something to maybe not this year, but maybe next year, people, that are following the AMU on Instagram get to see that, and then think like, oh, I should shoot this match in 2018, people like me. So I thought that was kind of cool.
Absolutely. I mean, it's just another way to get the information out there. They had it sent out in the form of the match book draft in email to all the shooters. I know they had it on their Facebook page, and also pumping it out there on Instagram. The more platforms, the more exposure, and like you're saying, probably reach some folks that are now kicking themselves that they didn't sign up this year.
Yeah, no kidding. Now, did you watch each of these movies before going to the match?
No, I mostly watched like Finding Nemo, and that was not a stage.
They didn't have a Finding Nemo stage?
No, or a Madagascar stage. I tried, but.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. Like most of these movies I've seen, Indiana Jones, Tombstone, Desperado, SWAT. So it's kind of cool to have that sort of theme. And like you said, they put that book out early, so it give you plenty of time to study if you need to.
Right, absolutely. Beforehand, when we knew the flying clays with the pistol were going to be there, gave us a chance to maybe practice that a little bit for a few folks, and wasn't as shocking as it would be if you're facing it for the first time in a match. Yeah.
I saw a lot of people practicing that, the month leading up to the match. And, I can just imagine, like, a lot of these matches that don't have a lot of pre-communication, you walk up to that and feel, intimidated. Like, oh, I've never practiced this before. I don't know what to do.
Right. And the match book is never accurate. I don't know. I understand that match staff is constrained. They've only got so much bandwidth. They've got families. They've got jobs. But when you can get that information out to the shooters, and if somebody wants to try to derive a training plan from what they think your stage is going to look like, good for them. Let them do it. I mean, otherwise,
yeah.
I kind of plan my training around what I think a match is going to present to me. So my training for like USPSA MultiGun Nationals, as an example, is way different than my training for Blue Ridge or Gen 3 or like a natural terrain match of some kind.
Yeah. And that's the point
because I'm trying to tailor the skill set for the event that I'm about to attend.
Exactly. And that's the point of the Match Recon podcast, is to be able to, disseminate that information out for people that are going to be shooting it. So now they'll know what to practice.
Absolutely.
All right. So we skipped over venue. We've been kind of talking about Fort Benning a little bit here throughout this whole thing, but anything that you want to add to the venue description?
Not really. Like I mentioned, it's mostly bays. Driving in and out, it was kind of cool when you get on base and you see all the obstacle courses that are part of the various phases of soldiers training. You see the big tower that they have to climb up and cargo nets and all that, and you just want to run out there like a kindergartner on the playground and start winging around out there. And that would have been a ton of fun. Maybe they can include those in the match next year.
There you go. Yeah, I've run Spartan races on Fort Carson here in Colorado, and multiple times. And yeah, you get in on the base, and everything. It's kind of weird if you're not from that type of environment, because everything looks the same. Like everything's really neat and orderly, like a Monopoly game. And you get to cruise by all those obstacles and stuff, and like you said, it's just like, I want to go climb that rope. I want to go climb that ladder, or the rope ladder, and all that cool stuff.
Oh, exactly. And one thing that the venue does have, and there wasn't, we weren't advised to be there because, we mentioned we're on a military base, so there's rules we have to follow. We're granted access since we're bringing firearms onto the base. We didn't have to register them as competitors in the match. However, we were only permitted to drive directly between the multi-gun ranges, the authorized multi-gun ranges. So my understanding is the U.S. Army Infantry Museum is on Fort Benning, and couldn't. It was something I was interested to go and see, where there was time to do so. It just to at least pop in and see what's up, but we weren't going to do that and violate the rules. They specifically stated I think it was in the match book or in some preliminary communication, that to not do that with firearms in your car. So, we didn't want to violate any of their rules, respect their regulations, and maybe next time we'll get a chance to stop in there.
Yeah. I've heard good things about that. All right, Jake. So how about the staff? How was the staff?
We touched on the staff a little bit, that the ROs were other disciplines of AMU, other AMU shooting disciplines. And as I mentioned, then some of the range commands were maybe a little inconsistent, RO to RO, and that would be my only critique, and it's not much of one. It's more of just a consistency thing. That said, they ran everybody the same. They knew exactly, they limited the gaming. You weren't able to game a stage. Trust me, I tried, and was received with a polite, head shake of, I'm not going to let you do that. I haven't let anybody else do it either. And okay, I respect that. So, they certainly ran everybody consistently. And, I have zero, the match staff did a phenomenal job. They even had some, I believe it was OCS candidates, officer candidate school candidates that were there. Some butter bars were there helping to reset targets, or kind of the specialty targets, the ones that required activators, or reset the bowling ball on the Indiana Jones stage, and kind of freed up just the shooters to basically be pasting holes for the most part, and or setting up steel when, how it goes when you've got a specialty target out there and the one guy on your squad's been resetting it the whole time, and then all of a sudden he's in the hole and he doesn't reset it, and then somebody's trying to reset it for the first time and they don't know how to reset a drop turner, and kind of slows everything down. There was none of that because they had those guys there performing those tasks.
Very cool. And how was the fun factor?
I really enjoyed it. The ripping off 40 some rounds in that shoot house stage that they had, it was just a good time. Like I said, everything was so fast and just wide open, and I just had a ton of fun getting to pull myself along in a boat and and trying to not fall out of it as I'm swinging left to right. And I give it a pretty high fun factor at this match.
That's awesome. I love matches that like go the extra yard or the extra mile. Like we were talking about digging big holes and everything. It really does add to the fun factor, because I feel like matches are the place to do stuff that you don't normally do stuff. Like I can go shoot from a stick lying on the ground or a pile of rocks any old day of the week, but to shoot from a boat as you're dragging yourself along and transitioning from shotgun to pistol, you can't do that everywhere.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I get it. Gives you a unique opportunity to when the match staff is willing to put on some of those challenges, that gives you something memorable to talk about and to show people, especially those that don't know a lot about shooting. Gives them an opportunity to see something really cool that maybe they can relate to and be like, oh, that's really awesome. How do I get into something like that? And kind of gives you a segue into maybe introducing somebody new to the sport.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great point. That's, one of the, actually not one of the first video that I saw that made me want to shoot 3-gun or find out about 3-gun was an Ironman stage. And, they were doing all kinds of stuff that I had never seen. They started you with your hands zip tied. You had to, get yourself out of it. You had a bag over your head, and they were lighting off firecrackers to simulate gunfire and everything. And I thought, that's awesome. I want to do that.
Right. And then the hook was set after you got your chance to go out and experience that the first time yourself.
Yeah. And here we are. All right, Jake, any funny things happen at the match?
Well, one thing that comes to mind was on the stage that had the moving car target. That was it broke while we were on there.
Really?
The target stopped traversing, and we'll just say that those AMU boys, they beat on some of their gear pretty hard. All of a sudden, the target's not moving. They're on the radio. ROs are on the radio with Daniel and the rest of the staff. And all of a sudden, here comes 4 guys running over the berm. You're taught not to run over the berms at a shooting range.
Yeah.
And here comes 4 guys running over the berm, sprinting down range. Most match staff, call Mr. Fix-It to stage 8, and 10 minutes later, the quartermaster, Mr. Fix-It guy, shows up and because he was on the other end of the range and comes driving in. Well, here, it was within 60 seconds, all of a sudden there was 4 or 5 guys there literally sprinting, running down range to go fix this target. And I think John Browning in the AMU comes whipping around on one of these side-by-sides, rooster tail flying. He's got to have this thing penned. It's 150 yards, and he's probably going 60 miles an hour in this side-by-side, as fast as it can probably go. They were definitely wanted to get things fixed and back up and running real quick.
That's awesome, man. Good times. Well, Jake,
and I'll just bring up one kind of a funny but upsetting thing too. By now, I'm sure a lot of the listeners of this show saw Josh Terrence, holster malfunction, DQ, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
Where both things came out at one time, and I'm going to give hats off to Sean Burrows for catching that on video. I know talking to Josh after that happened, nobody had any idea. It happened so fast.
Yeah.
Nobody knew what was going on. And it's not necessarily a funny thing, but it just brings to light that, that stuff can happen when you're least expecting it, especially somebody as experienced as Josh, and kind of found himself in a spotlight one doesn't want to be in. But props to him for sharing that video. And, I think it's got tens and tens of thousands of views. And, I think a lot of people see that and they're like, maybe I do need a retention holster and prevent anything like that from happening to me.
Yeah. I had a similar thing happen to me at Blue Ridge last year. And, it's tough to take that and learn from it. But yes, retention holsters, I honestly think they're necessary in these larger matches that we shoot. If you shoot like a club match and you're never asked to do anything out of the ordinary, or you never fall or anything, maybe you don't. But yeah, thumbs up for retention for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I recall that. Sorry if I'm bringing up a sore subject.
No,
Dave, but
no. Dude, my life is an open book. I talk into a microphone all the time, so no, it's totally fine. And I'm not sore anymore. The bruises have healed.
Good.
Yeah,
I know. I felt real bad for Josh when it happened, but he took it like a pro, and he stuck around for a while, and it was early enough that we told him, no hard feelings any which way. If you can get home to your family and enjoy that time, and he's been a true steward and kind of following up on that and kind of bringing a weird case to light that maybe some people can relate to.
Yeah, and hopefully, like we were saying, educate people, and maybe it won't happen to them in the future. Maybe we can save someone from the same sort of activity.
Exactly.
Yeah. Another funny video that I saw, Joe Farewell had like a massive rifle malfunction and did like a heroic spear as he was jumping over that speeder, just kind of passing it by. Had to leave a bunch of targets. So I'm gonna dig up these videos and put them in the show notes for people, so you can enjoy them yourself. All right, Jake. Anything you want to add to your Match Recon?
I saw they announced the dates for next year. I don't have them in front of me here, but I know they put the dates out for next year's Fort Benning match. So I'm going to anxiously await the registration for that and be at my computer when it goes live, and hopefully I get in. Maybe I shouldn't say too many good things about this match. I want to make sure I get in next year. Yeah,
I struggle with that too. It's like, do you sing the praises of the match and then not get in yourself, or do you keep the secret? But I think it's better karma to just tell everyone how awesome it is.
Absolutely. No, I think you're really going to be missing out if you choose not to go to this match. If you can make it work, flying it. If you need to fly to a match, ATL is a good airport to fly into. Lots of cheap flight options, and it's relatively close to the range. Like I said, just logistically, it's not that hard to get to. You get the uniqueness of going to a military base to shoot a match that's put on by the Army Marksmanship Unit, and all those things stack up into what is a hell of an experience.
Awesome. Well, that's Jake. That's a great way to end the Match Recon here. I totally appreciate your time in putting this together and in taking time out from your work schedule to chat with me on the podcast.
Yeah, anytime, Dave.
Hey, before you take off, be sure to check out the show notes at 3gunshow.com for links to things that we discussed in the podcast. This podcast is brought to you by Armalite, the original. Armalite rifles put the AR in AR-15. The rifles themselves come with 1 8 twist barrels, match barrels, 18-inch or 13.5-inch with a 15-inch or 12.5-inch handguard, Timney trigger, Luth AR stock, adjustable gas system, tunable comp, a patented tunable comp. This thing's ready to go right out of the box for a 3-gun with no additional modifications other than putting on a nice optic. I myself use a Vortex Viper PST 1-6 when I'm shooting TAC Ops, or their Spitfire when I'm shooting limited. Check them out at armalite.com. A quick reminder that if you enjoyed this podcast, consider supporting the show on Patreon for as little as $5 per month. That's like 3 rounds of 9mm per episode. Patreon.com/3gunshow. That's Patreon.
If you are finished, unload, show clear.